Now, guys, let's talk about the other Toronto team that's having their own struggles. The Raptors just lost their ninth in a row. They lost to Houston, which is probably, if not the worst, one of the worst teams in the league. They've really struggled. And where do they go from here? That's the question I want to ask. To be honest, I think this little stretch here, which in large part, let's face it, has happened because of COVID has absolutely ravaged this roster, right? But let's back up for a second. I think it's actually could be a good thing, and I'll explain why. Like they went into the season with high expectations. We did as well as fans. I thought they'd finish second or third in the conference. And they were dealt a losing hand from the beginning. I mean, the only team to play their entire schedule away from home. And you could say all you want about, yeah, they got to skip a Canadian winter and, they got to play golf all the time because they're in Tampa. Yeah. But home is home and that ain't home. So then they get off to this tough start and then they get it back on the rails and they look like the same Raps, scrappy, able to pull out wins. And then COVID happens and 4 guys sit, 5 guys sit. And then here we are. And the season is now lost. Let's face it. So it's time to sell. That's my thinking anyways. Let's say, and the reason why I say this is a good thing is if this latest spell of COVID didn't happen, let's say they finish 4th, 5th, 6th, they most likely lose in what? The first, second round? They're not going to the finals. They're not going to win a championship. And at the end of the day, now that we've had a taste of championship basketball, that's what we should be striving for. So let's regroup this offseason. Let's sell Norm. Let's sell Kyle. Let's get what we can from them. Let's regroup in the offseason with a high pick because that's what they're going to get now. The first high pick that they've had in, Bobby, what's it been, 8 years, 9 years? And then you go back into next season with a solid core. You've got Fred, you've got Pascal, you've got OG. You're going to have this next high pick. You got Malachi Flynn. Things are not looking too bad. And I think because they won a championship just 2 years ago, it gives them a little bit of leeway. Like, I'm not upset as a fan. It is what it is. Throw the season in the garbage. Let's try to get some assets back, though. That's where my head is at right now. What do you guys feel?
I'll even take you one step further. I think there's a bigger problem coming here, Joe. And I'll agree with you to a certain extent where this is a tough year to, to really judge this team on because of the fact that they're in Florida and all of that. But the guys that you're really paying the big money to, and I'm kind of, singling out Pascal Siakam. There's something here, bigger here, where I think there's a larger. I think there's some things going on that could be distractions wise, could be something that we're not really taking into consideration. This stuff that just came out recently about, I think it was last night or the night before, him getting in Nurse's face and supposedly being fined on it, which hasn't really been confirmed. But this is the second time he's had a run-in with his coach. All right, and who's can pretty much walk on water because he's won a championship, and Pascal is the guy that they've spending a lot of money on, but he hasn't been great, even since the bubble piece, he's not been good. He's not been good this year, and you're paying a lot of money to this guy, and you're not getting that return in that first year. The guy that you thought he's a shell of himself. So if he's gonna be one of those guys moving forward, I don't know that really doesn't really set up well for the core of this team. If what they're getting on the rate of return, paying this guy a max contract, and they're getting this little back, I don't know, man. He may have to be one of those pieces that you move out and you try to say cut bait, see what you get for the guy, because this could get a lot worse before it gets better. And my question is, do you stick with Nurse? I'm not saying you let him go. I'm not saying that. Or you stick with a guy like Siakam, because I think Nurse can get a lot out of guys that are just like another Siakam. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's more expendable than your coach is.
Why do you have to pick, Frank? Why do you have to pick one or the other?
I just think because it's there.
You think
it's just there's something there that they're when this happens more than once, this is not where there's smoke, there's fire. You know what I mean?
See, I disagree because They just lost 9 in a row. You know, like you're a coach. You coach so many years, Bobby. You as well. You know, when your team is not doing well, tensions are high. You're frustrated. You know, things get said to one another, and it just comes out of frustration. That doesn't mean that you hate each other or anything like that. It's just you're in a battle together. You're trying to come out of it together. So I know
Yes, you're
Shams
right.
Charania reported this earlier today, and then and Shams is pretty much never wrong. But then Michael Grange came out and refuted the fact that he didn't get fined. So
Yeah,
they didn't
we don't.
deny that there was
Correct.
a discussion, we'll say, between the two of them, but the fine hasn't happened at least yet.
You're right, but even the first incident they had this year where he walked off the bench, like that's a blatant disrespect for your team. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like that creates issues. Number one. I'm not saying that can't be fixed. I'm just saying, but again, it's like how much more do you have to put up before it's like, oh shit, we made a huge mistake here. Now we're screwed. So all I'm trying to say is, like you just mentioned, tensions are high. They've lost to the worst team in the league. They haven't won since Jesus walked the earth. I think it was in terms of Houston. But like, if you're saying, well, let's sell this guy, sell that guy, you might as if you're going to do it, you might as well, you know, do it to the extreme. You got Fred locked in, you got this guy new Malachi, you're really only going to get it back with major assets. You know what I mean? And that's how you're going to get these picks back, players that you can probably build around. And maybe they're thinking, if we gave max money to this guy, maybe might be better used somewhere else. I'm just saying that is a potential that
Okay.
I can see happening.
But you want to trade Siakam because he's not living up to that max contract, which he
It's
hasn't.
everything. It's everything.
He hasn't. But
The
what team is
attitude
going
is
to want to
everything.
acquire him then if he's not living up to that contract? Because then he eats into their cap, and you know, why would a team want him at that price tag? Basically, is what I'm saying. If he's such a
It could be a lose-lose situation. You're saying to yourself, either we get something for him now, or we get half of that next year if it gets any worse. All I'm saying is he's trending down. There's nothing to suggest he's going to come out of this, is what I'm saying.
fair enough.
Like, what do you see in his game to say, oh, you know what, he's good enough where he's breaking out of it? We don't know. We really, I hope he does.
Not much this year, but I think, hopefully you go into an off season. It's a regular off season. He, going into the bubble last year, he got into the bubble and he's like, yeah, I hadn't shot a basketball in 2 months this whole time. I hadn't done anything. And we were like, what? Are you serious? I mean, if you did do that, you should not be coming on here and admitting it to us, the fans.
Exactly.
So maybe he just needs to, refocus, work on his game, and come back stronger next year. That's what I would do. I would see another year out of him first before I make any rash decisions. Sorry.
All right,
Bob?
Bob. Give it. Go for
Okay.
it.
I've been sitting waiting my turn. I have so many thoughts on this. Siakam first. Have we seen him be good when he's the guy? I think what you're seeing right now is he's not the guy. He might be a guy. He's not the guy. He looked great when they had Kawhi. He looked good when they had DeRozan. He's not really a dynamic player. He doesn't shoot the ball really well. He's good at getting into the hole.
When did we ever think that he was the guy?
Well, you're paying him like he is the guy, and we're basically saying they were like, well, everybody knew losing Kawhi was huge, but they're like, well, at least we still have Siakam. I don't know. He's like a Giannis light, where he's like a really smaller, not as good version of Giannis, where he's got a lot of restrictions and limitations. I don't want to go too far into this. I have a real issue with this team and all this fighting, and Kyle's kind of put me off a little bit, and Siakam too. I'm with Frank a little bit. Like, where was this fight against Boston? I watched this team lay over and just get rolled by a small Boston team, but now they're infighting. Where was all the fight last year? It seems like these guys, I don't know what happened to them, but since that championship year, they have no reason to be upset. I don't know where the animosity and anger comes from. I have a big issue with Nick Nurse, a huge issue that I haven't talked about. But I didn't like his coaching style. I'm not saying he's not a good coach. What I'm saying is I watch him in game 42 of the season yelling and screaming and getting on the refs and going crazy in game 42 of the regular season. I think this is a good example of in the NBA, you got to relax a little bit. These are long, 82 games are long seasons. What if he's just worn this team out? What if he's just worn out Siakam, where it's just guys on top, it's just constantly being hammered? And my argument to Nick was just chill out, dude. Chill out a little bit. And I think it's starting to catch up to this team. You can't be that intense. Did you guys ever watch Phil Jackson coach? Did you guys ever watch, Joe Torre coach? They just sat there and let guys go through stuff. You can't get on the refs every game. You can't get on your players every team. Look at Tom Thibodeau. You guys know Tom Thibodeau? He used to coach that guy's he wears out his welcome everywhere because he just constantly hammers the player. I had this argument all the time about Nick. He's a great coach. I don't think they would have won the NBA championship without him. But this is where I think he's got to learn and say, game 43 of the regular season when we're 32-11, this is not a big deal if the refs miss a call. This is a good example of me just sitting back, letting the guys kind of figure it out themselves. It's just too. You can't constantly be on. The season is too long to just constantly be on.
I see your point, but you're a Raptors fan, so you know this. Majority of games, we feel like we are being taken advantage of by the officials. We feel like we're getting the short end of the stick. Correct? And if you go on social media, it's the same. It's all over there. So as a coach of that team, if you feel like you're getting the short end of the stick, and it's not just that game, it's game in and game out, eventually you can't hold it in anymore. You got to say something.
But it's every game. I don't mind if once in a while. Phil Jackson got on the refs once in a while. But the rest of the games he sat there. And games where he thought he was unfairly treated, guess what he did? He went to the media and he said, yeah, the officiating was bad. Maybe they'll be a little bit better tomorrow. And put pressure on them that way. You can't constantly. He's going to have honestly, I'm worried he's going to have a heart attack on the sidelines. I don't even know what his blood pressure is getting to that you're getting. You can't be that intense and that into every game in the and especially in basketball. Come on, guys. We know that the NBA regular season is a joke. It is a joke. It's just get me to the play. Half the stars don't even play 70 games anymore. It's just get me to the playoffs. And I think he was just too intense. And if he's intense on the refs, I can't even imagine how intense he is on the players.
All right, before we end this little segment on the Raps, Bobby, you selling Kyle before this deadline?
Yeah. I'm selling. I would sell as many pieces that I could. The selling Siakam that is if you get the right offer. I think if you get the right offer, you can move him. Kyle, yeah, move on from him. If he wants to go, you know what? I think the guy's put in his time. If he wants to go to Philly, send him to Philly. He wants to go to Phoenix. Like this is almost doing him a favor too. Give him another shot at a ring.
I agree.
And it's the rest of the guys. Like I would move Fred if I got the right offer. It's just what's the right offer. I think also the thing with rebuilding an NBA, you got to be really careful. I mean, you want to rebuild when there's a big star coming up. I mean, there are some years where, Bargnani, right? You get the first overall pick and it's Andrea Bargnani. So I think really interesting. The expectations have changed, though. The way, Joe, you let off this segment of it's championship or bust. That's the Raptors have changed.
Well, not that it's championship or bust, but it's we know what the championship feels like, and it's like it.
Now that's all you want.
What's the point of trying to win? You know what I mean? Get into the playoffs and then you don't have a chance. And that's what it felt like for the longest time for the Raptors. Like, yeah, we're going to the playoffs, but like we have no shot of winning. But now that we've won a championship, like
you want more, baby. That's it.
Yeah, I'm greedy. Yeah. Now I know how all those Boston fans feel with the Patriots and the Bruins and the Red Sox and get out of here. All right, we'll see if Kyle still has a 416 area code when he in a couple days.
Well, I can tell you right now, because we're kind of recording this before the trade deadline, and in hopes that if I still have a life, I can get this out just before the trade deadline. But in the event that it's out after, the Woj has just tweeted that things are picking up between the Raptors and for Kyle Lowry, Norman Powell with the Sixers and the Heat. They're kind of taking it down to the wire, he says, but it looks like things are picking up for both those players. So it looks like there's a push for guards between, and it's kind of like a bidding war between Philadelphia and Miami. So it might be interesting to see what happens here.
With the LeBron injury, this could be a very interesting. This could be a wow, kind of the path has opened,
especially because like those high ankle sprains. Oh. You could come back in a couple months, but it's never. It ain't going to be the same.
They say it's better you break your ankle than the high ankle sprain.
Yeah,
which is scary.
Hey, let me ask you one more thing on Siakam. The fact that they didn't go, the fact that they lost Gasol and Ibaka, and Siakam played the center. Well, essentially, he was playing the center role this year because Aaron Baines ain't really doing much. But could that have an effect? So, like the way they're using him in a different position than he's used to, could that really have that much of an effect on his game? Could be one of the reasons why he hasn't been as effective. Because he was never a great shooter either, right?
It's become a positionless NBA where I think people are. You see centers now that are like 6'8", 6'9".
Oh yeah.
I mean, look at the Celtics last year. The one issue, I understand what you're saying, Frank. The only thing is sometimes with a guy that wants to get to the rim, he doesn't want centers in there. You know, like sometimes Giannis does. If you watch the Bucks play, they'll put Lopez, their center, you know, outside the 3-point line to almost open up that space. Because sometimes, you know, if you got a center inside, and a guy like Siakam's driving the rim, now there's rim protection there. So yes and no. It could, but it's a really tough one to speculate on.
Coach Bobby Bottles, the basketball coach.
He went from the swing doctor to the
faceted.
Yeah, 3-point doctor or the rebound. Yeah, the rebound doctor. There you go.
That's right. Hey, Bobby, happy belated, by the way. We shot